All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Racha HaKwadash. Double honors to my other apostles, a great millstone. Peace and salutation to the hopeful members of the elect, the Bechorim, the house of David, that's been preordained, predestined to get delivered in these last times and to be the ruling governing body of the nation Yashala. Breaking news: Thailand launches airstrikes on Cambodia after deadly border attack. As you can see in the map, there's Cambodia, all right, and Thailand right below it. So you have a war that broke out. I'm watching the
In southern
enforcer.
Benin
Let's
is
go into
currently
it.
conducting orbits over Continental in southern Benin, with reports over the last few hours of airstrikes by fighter aircraft of the Nigerian Air Force. It appears that the French are providing some form of intelligence for the Beninese Air Force to
And he's
conduct.
going into another, but I was watching
What,
him. He's
what
going
better
into it.
says Turkey doing Turkey complications? Some of the parties were actually treated equally, with the United States not giving deference to one or the other.
Hold on, let's go back.
We were actually fairly as much damage as possible along the border region. Soldiers on the Thai side, which is kind of surprising considering that Thailand is better armed, but not a good situation. But Enforcer, what say you? I would have to say that this is certainly going to be getting much uglier over the next coming days. We've already gotten a preview of what this is going to look like several months ago when this conflict started originally, at least in the present day, and we did see that the Royal Cambodian Army generally starts to conduct mass saturation rocket barrages in broader areas, not even strategically viable or important, generally aiming at conducting as much damage as possible along the border region. This always results in significant civilian casualties, as many people will know of the
We also
seven.
have Turkey invades Syria. So, I watched this channel, the Enforcer. He goes into a lot of geopolitical matters, war. Okay.
11 attacks, and also the attacks on the hospitals and so on that were conducted in the area that did result in dozens of Thai civilians being wounded and killed. We also understand that the Royal Thai Army will not be holding back at all on conducting attacks against Cambodian positions, and will most likely start to use their air superiority, which they have by de facto, considering that the Cambodian Army does not have an existing air force, to start conducting airstrikes against the Cambodian armed forces and also any strategic infrastructure or positions that they hold on their side of the border. The Royal Thai Army also is better equipped on the ground and will be able to conduct precision artillery strikes to support their offensives against Cambodian forces, and of course those forces will also be supported by fairly advanced armor, at least compared to what the Cambodians are able to field, which is generally T-55s en masse and T-62s in somewhat smaller numbers. As a result of that, we will most likely see that the war will heavily favor Thailand, although civilian casualties on the Thai side will be somewhat significant, especially considering that the Cambodians will start larger rocket barrages. One thing I will have to say is that while Enforcer Matt is correct that we do not know exactly who started this conflict today, I can generally tell y'all that it is most likely the Cambodians that have started the conflict today, because not only did we see proof of them moving forces to the border earlier in the morning before fighting had even begun, we also...
Let me get a scripture real quick. Matthew 24, verse 7. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. Oh, you just had a 6.8 earthquake in Alaska. All right. But a nation shall rise against nation, verse 6. And he shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So we're seeing rumors of wars, nation rising against nation. All right. That's how you know we're at the end. You see? We're at the end.
Saw that they were conducting pre-evacuation of...
This is prophecy. All right. The Lord's going to take this place out, but what has to come before total devastation, ultimately America getting nuked, is an RFID chip. All right. But this is prophecy. Okay. All these things must come to pass, and they're coming to pass in a prophetic order that the Most High has ordained since the foundation of the beginning, before the foundation of the beginning, I should say. Revelation 19, verse 10, and I fell at his feet to worship him, and he said unto me, see that I do it not. I am thy fellow servant, and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Yahushai. Worship the Most High Yahweh, for the testimony of Yahushai is a spirit of prophecy, and testimony going to like a witness. So, we're witnessing, we're witnesses, watching this thing, this whole world crumbling. All right, we're witnessing prophecy being taking place, and we know that we're that much closer to Yahushua's return. Okay, so if you're in the spirit of Yahushua, you're going to be in the spirit of prophecy, and this is definitely prophecy. Hopping out the pages. All right, all these wars happening, and people say there's always been wars. Yeah, but at the end, it's like, and we're in a total different era where this is a different type of warfare now. It's more advanced technological weaponry. All right, so let's continue.
Civilians from the area. Now, unless if the Royal Cambodian Army has top-tier intelligence like the CIA and was able to know that the Thai were going to attack them later on in the day, it wouldn't really make a lot of sense for them to move their forces in the area and simultaneously move the civilians out to avoid any kind of collateral casualties in the civilian population. This generally leads me to believe that they were planning to conduct this attack against the Thai earlier on in the day, and that's why they started to conduct the pre-evacuations of civilians from the border areas. We didn't see anything similar like that from the Thai, which would lead us to believe that they had absolutely no plans of conducting any significant actions against the Cambodians that would result in artillery fire or reprisals from Cambodia, and also due to the fact that the first casualties in this exchange so far were 2 Thai soldiers, would generally tell us that, at least during that time, the Cambodians actually had the jump on the Royal Thai Army and were actually able to ambush those soldiers at that outpost, maybe when they were in some sort of an exposed position that led to both of them being heavily injured enough that they would succumb to their injuries and die later on in the day. So I would generally say that while we cannot confirm exactly who started the war, I generally would have to lean towards the Cambodians were most likely the ones to have started the conflict, because from what we know in literally every other engagement that has happened over the course of this year between the two, it is largely the Cambodians that are the instigators or the initiators of armed action along that area of the border. While an anonymous donor just threw in a $500 donation. Holy moly.
Look at that.
So I just looked up like who has a more advanced military, just curious. Cambodia or Thailand. It says Thailand is ranked, so overall strength and rankings, right? It says Thailand is ranked about 25th of 145 countries in global firepower's 2025 ranking. Cambodia is ranked around 95 of 145, far lower and much weaker overall. Budget and manpower, Thailand defense budget 5.7 billion, active personnel 360,000. Defense budget for Cambodia is 1.3 billion, active personnel is 124,000. So Thailand spends over 4 times more and has about 3 times as many active troops, equipment and technology, hundreds of modern tanks and armor vehicles, thousands of artillery pieces, a real air force with around 100 plus combat aircraft like F-16s, Gripen jets, etc. A much larger navy with an aircraft carrier, frigates, and many patrol warships. Cambodia, a smaller army with fewer tanks and artillery, no fighter jets. Man, no fighter jets. Wow. It's like every nation has one. Its air arm is mainly helicopters and transport aircraft, a very small navy, a few thousand personnel, and a handful of patrol boats. Modernization alliances. Thailand is a U.S. designated major non-NATO ally, buys Western equipment, and is actively modernizing its air force and navy. Cambodia is trying to grow with rising budgets and support mainly from China, but still far behind its tech and scale. So, Thailand, all right, it has a much stronger military. All right, so this will be like
Raised. They're almost up to 2,000 raised already, by the way. Also, by the way, while we're talking about all this news, left before we hit the goal. So very nice roll about this situation from the United States, brokering that ceasefire. I would imagine we're going to be hearing from the U.S. leadership very, very soon about this, because they have a vested interest in ensuring the situation does not get too out of control for political reasons. So we'll probably be hearing more tomorrow, I would imagine, if not maybe later tonight, probably in the morning though, about where this is going to go and what the U.S. is going to try to do to bring this to an end. But considering the fact that the ceasefire ceasefire has officially failed, and it's failed badly. I'm not sure what's left at this point, considering that it's been broken.
I would have to say there isn't really a lot left, folks, and that is actually something that is a little bit interesting here, is that this war was technically over up until about 3 weeks to a month ago. And many of you all will know that the United States has been heavily involved in the past in negotiating a ceasefire initially between Thailand and Cambodia, and then ratifying a peace treaty between the two sides. What is fairly interesting about that process is that we understand that both parties were actually treated equally, with the United States not giving deference to one or the other as the defending party or the aggressor party. And generally, the peace treaty and ceasefire did not really address any of the underlying issues that were involved in the conflict, which has been talked about endlessly on this channel in months prior when these ceasefires and peace treaties were actually initiated, that they were cheap ceasefires and peace treaties and generally were not going to stand because they actually did not resolve the underlying issue that led the two parties to conflict in the first place. Turns out that over the course of 8 months, that ended up being a completely correct analysis, as we are now seeing that not only was the peace treaty completely ripped up as a result of it not really addressing any underlying tensions and the war pretty much restarting organically on its own, but now both sides are truly back into a full-blown shooting war, much like they were earlier in the year when the original ceasefire was laid into effect and pretty much put onto both sides. So I would have to be entirely honest with you all here, not to get into this for too long, but I mean, you know, we've been saying for about a year at this point that cheap ceasefires and cheap peace treaties don't produce anything but far worse results on in the future, and y'all are literally looking at a living example of that today. It came full circle from us just saying that to it actually happening. So if it can happen here, it can happen anywhere, and that's generally why foreign policy can't push an all-war or an all-peace approach in every situation. It generally has to be custom-tailored to each situation, and of course, once again, folks, the United States is not in omnipotent power. We're not a godlike nation. We can't come in and turn wars on and off like turning on and off the faucet. Generally, we can try and stop a war, but if we can't stop it, then all we can do is generally curb who in the world's going to win and who's going to lose. And even still, we don't have a full-on determining result in that either. But moving on out of the Cambodian war, because it's only one of the three that started today, you know, I don't want to get y'all. Go ahead.
It's like I'm just playing this, all right? Just, you know, so you can get filled in.
Oh, we got breaking news, by the way. Right now, we are hearing that it looks like, believe it or not, Thailand is conducting a second wave, an entire new second wave of airstrikes in the last few minutes with their F-16 fighter jets. So that is one of the biggest things that Thailand can do.
And Cambodia has no fighter jets, you know, right? They're a much weaker military nation.
The Cambodians right now is launching these large F-16 aerial strikes on their forces, and we're hearing initial reports that they've done it again. They've struck artillery and command sites of the Cambodian army in the Adar Minche province of northern Cambodia. So that's what we're hearing right now. So they've done an initial strike. We saw that earlier. They're doing another one now. So the Thai are not wasting time.
So, you know, that was it. I'll leave it at that. All right, you can watch more of his channel. He's live right now, you know, if you catch it. The Enforcer. I advise you watch him. He goes into a lot of wars and geopolitical matters, all right? You know, if you're doing something around the house or chores or whatever, you know, I just put him on in the background and listen, all right? So with that, hey, shalom.